Welcome to the Talk With Kiet podcast, where we connect people, ideas, and capital to make a difference in the world. Today, I have my friend Bharat Ravuri with me. Bharat is an old friend and a successful entrepreneur who founded and sold Minzip. Today, Bharat and I will talk about his career journey and entrepreneurship journey, but most importantly, discuss his pursuit of freedom and what that means. Now, before we start, of course, I'd like to say happy post Thanksgiving and also happy Black Friday to everyone. I hope you get to find some good deals today. Uh, I'm personally extremely thankful for everything in my life, and I am especially thankful for our guests of this podcast and the continued support from the listeners. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Now, Bharat, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Kate. It's a pleasure to be here.
And Bharat, as part of tradition in this podcast, we usually kick off with the career journey of our guests and how they got to where they are now. From my understanding, you started your career as a developer. So how do you go from being a developer to being on the business side, actually running a business and founding and starting a business?
Yeah, I think, I would love to say that it's all an outcome of a great strategic plan, but the reality is it's not, right? I think it's about the opportunities and the choices and the decisions that I have made at different points in time. And if you look at my career journey, even if you ask at different points in time, how do I see my own career? I don't think I would have plotted the career progression and the career changes that I have done, at that point in time. So it's not that I have seen these as strategic steps and moves and have moved in the direction. It's about the opportunities that have come in to be able to really do that. So when I was working as a technology side, then on the implementation side, and then I moved in as a leader, um, you know, I was getting many similar opportunities to play similar roles. I said, if I'm going to play the same role, why would I want to change the company and do the same role? So I was looking for something exciting and something different, and that's how I got opportunity at Market to do a different set of role and run businesses, and that's how I came into that role. And similarly, when I was there, I was always thinking about entrepreneurship at the back of my head that I would like to do at some point in time, but never bit the bullet if I had to kind of really look at it to be able to do that, right? And at a point in time, I would say, I saw a potential set of opportunities. So, like for example, if I take a step back and just look at it, I feel at least in my career journey and the lifetime, there are three distinct stages where there was a great opportunities for entrepreneurs to be able to build and thrive, if I have to say that, right? The first is in the early stages of my career, which is basically late 90s, which was the whole internet revolution that started, right? And though the dot-com bust, many of the companies have actually gone bust, but the core essence of the internet has lived through. And then in the 2000s, early 2000s, you have seen many companies that have established and that have built successful set of companies, right? That was, I would say, the first stage of a play for me to be an entrepreneur, which I wasn't embracing it. Then the second journey started sometime around 2012, 2013. If you see when the advent of deep technologies, artificial intelligence that could potentially, and analytics, right, that potentially change the way the businesses were looking and operating in this economy. And so when I was at Market, I was kind of really thinking about it. And I said, okay, hey, here is an opportunity for me to be able to start something using these deep technologies to embrace a new model of servicing customers and delivering value to the customers. And that's how I took that risk to be able to go and start Minzip, right, in 2017, which I subsequently exited in 2019, just before COVID. So once again, a lot of people said you've been strategic and you just left it before the COVID commenced and you had to do it. And once again, I would rather say it's more destiny than my strategic planning. It just happened. And then I would say the third stage of the entrepreneurship is now, right, with the advent of blockchain and crypto. And once again, people are talking right now. I mean, 1 year back, everybody was gung ho about crypto. Everybody wanted a Bitcoin, and now many people don't want to touch crypto given free fall that it's kind of really going through. But I do strongly believe that the core essence of the blockchain and the crypto opportunities and the Web3 is out there, and it is going to revolutionize many of the business models and opportunities that are going to be existing. I'm a hardcore believer that financial services is going to turn DeFi, right, and kind of really drive in that space. So I think it's once again a great time for anybody to be an entrepreneur. And I don't think the stage two, which I talked about, the deep technology is still continuing, and then you have a stage three, which is with the blockchain and crypto coming in. So best time for anybody to be an entrepreneur is right now, to be able to get there. So that's the opportunities that I have taken. And then subsequently, I joined Principal, headed their asset management business. We sold that company. We exited when Principal wanted to exit India. And now I'm here in pursuing freedom.
Now, before we go on the pursuit of freedom topic, though, I am curious. Zoom back a little bit. You started MinZip, and within 6 months, you had 100,000 plus customers. Like, how do you manage to do that? Like, what were some of the secret ingredients of that early success?
Right. I would say it's not immediately in 6 months. I think we took some time to be able to build the product, right? And
Yeah.
today there is people are talking about neo banking and all of that. That's kind of really bringing that in. But if you look at it, that was the core concept that we started Minzip with, where you are able to be able to come in for any potential set of services. And the core essence of when I started off Minzip was also that you know the critical element in people's thinking about financial services was decision making, right? Once people had made decision, I want to buy mutual fund, I want to buy an insurance, or I want to invest somewhere, you could do that. I mean, there are multiple companies that existed during that period of time to enable that to happen, but the key element was to help people make the right financial decision. And I didn't think at that time there existed any company that was enabling people to be able to do that. And that's how we started off the Minzip at that point of time. And we built a very excellent product with a very, very powerful chatbot at the back end that you could ask it any fairly complex set of questions. And I believe that at the time, and I think even if you compare it to the chatbots that exist today, it is still one of the most powerful, that you could ask any question in a freestyle English and it would understand and it would answer you back about your own financials. So it was like Siri and Alexa, but for financial services, right? For
Yeah,
your
yeah.
personal finances. Let me kind of really make that right. It's more about your personal finances, and it was able to potentially be able to do that. And I think when we launched that initial interaction and that word of mouth, that has really built it up, right? We did some level of marketing, but I think more than marketing, it is about the ease with which the people could potentially use the app, and there was a tremendous amount of word of mouth that helped us to be able to get a significant number of initial subscribers to the app.
Awesome. Now, so you, people saying, "Hey, you strategically timed it in 2019 to sell the business," but what was your mindset going through when there was an opportunity to sell the business, and that decision that you had to make? Hey, this is my new baby. I've only launched the last 2 years. Like, what was it that helped you conclude? Okay, it's time to sell, and let's take it to the next level.
I would say it was much more. I am a person who loves building products. I'm a person who love uh, delivering value to the customers, right? And when we were building that particular service within India, and it's true anywhere else, but especially in the Indian market, in the Indian context, there were two things that were starting to become very, very real and critical for me. One was obviously we needed a significant amount of money to market and to be able to build. Building a consumer business is not easy in any country, and so much in India. So it's going to be a huge money crunching, business that's going to be coming in. But second, it's also important to be able to build a tremendous amount of trust in the brand, right? Especially what happens is in India, the trust quotient is less, right? I mean, when you are starting something new, there is always a lot more skepticism, and especially when it comes to finances, and rightly so, because there were a lot of frauds that happened in the past, right, where people's money got siphoned off, and so therefore building the trust becomes a lot more. So you are needing a lot of money to build both the trust and to build a consumer business in India. So my role, instead of building products, instead of delivering value to the customers, was I have seen chasing money and ensuring that I'm constantly raising money and all of that stuff. Good, you can do it, but that's not the exciting piece as much as building products, which is what I love doing, right? And thinking, being innovative in the way you approach it, and
Yeah.
that's what made the decision to be able to exit, right? It ended up becoming strategic because of COVID,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
frankly, it's just more of a timing, and the timing was good because that's when I also had an opportunity to be part of Principal Financial Group, and we were, had a very very interesting journey with Principal Financial Group out there for almost couple of 2.5 years. So that was a an exciting part. So for me, my life journey has always been moving from one exciting thing to another exciting thing to another exciting thing, and somewhere along the way, I think I probably, if I look at it in hindsight, I made those choices because they excited me. Otherwise, I would be bored to death if I had to
Yeah.
do anything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Now you're in pursuit of freedom, and I think going back a little bit, you kind of highlight this though. The first thing with pursuit of freedom is really understanding who you are and who you're not, right? So talk a bit about, because you and I, when we were chit chatting, we talk about like when I was in my 20s, I didn't know who I was. When I was in my 30s, I didn't know who I was. And when I hit my 40s, I'm like, this is who I am. Whether you like it or not, this is me, right? Like talk about that journey a bit.
so yeah, I mean, Kit, there are two dimensions to this, right? I would want to kind of really look at it. One is understanding who we are. I think that's important for us to be able to get that. And second one is living who we are, like who we are. Most of the times, even if you have an understanding of who we are, we don't live the way we are, right? We are constrained by many of the things that are around us, rightly so, because of the responsibilities that we have towards the family, towards the society, and towards the company that we are part of, right? Or towards the ecosystem that we are part of. But it places a tremendous amount of constraints. So for example, if you have a role in the company, you have a fiduciary responsibility and a managerial, a leadership responsibility towards this company. So anything that you say, anything that you do is a reflection of the company that you represent. So you are very very cautious in the way you say things, in the way you do things, and you echo the views of the company once again. And nothing wrong about it, but that's the responsibility. Though you may have your own personal views, and you probably may share with a friend in a close banter, but it's very difficult to talk about it in publicly what your personal views about any of the matters are, if they're in conflict with the company views, right? At some point of times that can be possible to be able to do that. So I think one is that's a very very important piece. The second, when you're kind of really living in this world, and a lot of people ask me when I became an entrepreneur, right? I was a successful career person in corporates, and I jumped into being an entrepreneur. And many people came and asked me, how the hell did you make the decision, right? How much money did you have in the bank before you made the decision to be able to leave a corporate and to be able to jump, right?
That's right.
I will talk about two aspects out there, right? But first, let me tell you that if somebody is looking to make a rational plan on when to leave a cushy corporate job to get into being an entrepreneur, let me tell you, you will never be able to make that. Because if you have to jump from being uh, a corporate career to be an entrepreneur, I always keep saying that there are two things that are critical. One is utter stupidity, and second one is stubborn optimism. And when I say utter stupidity, if you are looking for that rational plan at a point, you will never get it, because you will never feel safe how much ever money you have in the bank, because you always will be thinking about some or the other exigencies to be able to come in. At some point of time, you got to take that leap of faith and you got to jump, right? The second is, from once you start being an entrepreneur, 9.5 out of 10 people that you meet will tell you why your idea doesn't work, why it's going to be failing, why 99 other people have already tried that idea and are not successful. So it's not just sufficient to be optimism, but you need to be that stubborn optimism to be able to continue to face this negative views that you get about the business that you're running and still be able to successfully lead that business. So I think these two dimensions are critical to make that happen, right? So the question that I would ask anybody who is watching this video is, in your life, you would have taken a leap of faith on multiple people, right? On the leader of the company, and therefore you followed them. or on your friend who had joined a company and said it's a great place for you to come in, and therefore you jumped and you probably have gotten there, or on your somebody else, right? The question that I would ask is, how many of you have taken a leap of faith on your own self, right? How many of you are willing to bet on your own self? And you can say, I have self confidence, I represent everything right. But when it comes into actions, many of the people falter out there, because as much as we probably trust and have confidence in somebody else, many of the times we shy away from having that trust and confidence in our own selves. And I'm a big believer that if you take that leap of faith in yourself and if you trust your own self, this world is going to present to you with a humongous number of opportunities that probably you have not considered. I think that's a critical dimension that you would be able to need to think about it, right? Then comes, you know, you talked about in the pursuit of freedom. What does freedom really mean, right? I want to kind of really talk about that. Now, for somebody, and once again, whether you're starting to be an entrepreneur because you want to be an entrepreneur, or whether you are wanting to do something different, one of the big constraints that we have, and I'm being very candid out here in making a couple of things, statements. One is, we have become a slaves of the month-end paycheck. That gives us a sense of security, a sense of confidence that at the end of the month I am getting that paycheck. And if you ask anybody, let go of that check, it's very, very difficult for people to be able to do that. I mean, you get a humongous number of questions in their head. So letting go of that month-end paycheck is not easy for people. But unless until you do that, it's going to be difficult. And when I spoke about this to many people also talk to me about being loyalty, right? I mean, I'm doing so much for the company, I need to be loyal to the company. And, I appreciate that. And loyalty is important, right? But somewhere along the way, there is also loyalty to your own self. And are you subjugating the loyalty and the priorities of yourself over the priorities of the company, priorities of the family or somebody else? Is something that we need to question ourselves, right? Because time has proven, and once again, time will prove that at the end of the day, do what is right for the company. Please don't get me wrong. I had been a career corporate guy. I worked for many years in the companies and worked like crazy hours for the companies to be successful, right? So don't get me wrong when I'm saying this. But at the end of the day, it is important to recognize that what you have is a contract with the company. And as much as you like to live your lifetime with the company, we have talked about unemployment numbers, the companies letting go of employees because of their business needs. And rightfully so, those business decisions have been made in the past, are being made today, and will be made tomorrow. The question is, do you want to define your own life in being only associated with that, or are you willing to explore other opportunities that exist, right? And if you have to do that, somewhere along the way, the first major hurdle that you need to cross is that month-end paycheck. Am I willing to let go of month-end paycheck and still have confidence in my own self to be successful and to be able to thrive? I believe each and every one of you can do it, but you cannot see that world unless you're willing to let go of that paycheck.
But you raise a good point, though. How safe is really that month-end paycheck, other than mentally?
I'm sorry?
I mean, I've seen people that's been loyal to a company, work for 20, 30 years. Second there's layoff, they're out, right? So how safe is that month-end paycheck
It's
in
not, right?
reality?
It is good as long as you get it, but the
Yeah.
day it gets stopped, you don't have anybody. So sometimes it's important for you to be able to plan. And believe me, from a macroeconomic perspective, and we can talk a little bit about this kit later on, we are going to go through a tremendous amount of changes in the world, right? And we are going to go through a time period that is going to surpass the Great Depression that we had in 1930s. So if people are thinking that their employment is safe, if their careers are safe, and if their increments and bonuses that they are going to be getting, they are going to be getting in the same order, I don't know if you have 100% assurance of that. Now, please, I'm not trying to scare you, the wits out of you, and make this like a doom and gloom world. But what I'm trying to say is, it's also important to be prepared to know. So even if you don't want to let go of a corporate job right now, I would seriously ask you to start considering what other sources of income do you have, or importantly, what other sources of income can you build? Maybe it's passives. Maybe you have to relook at your investment models. Need not necessarily be an active income. But I think it is important right now to start thinking about alternative income channels, right? Than what you have got today.
So how do you plan for that, right? I think you're right on where you say, okay, I want to be less dependent on my monthly paycheck. I want to go into this entrepreneur journey, but I have a family to feed. I got responsibilities. I can't just jump with the leap of faith, right? So what are some things that people can do to build foundation to get them to that path?
Yeah, so I think the key element is people, we, in India, and so is true with many other parts of the world, when people talk about saving, right? So I saved a certain amount of money. Unfortunately, if that money is not earning much more than what you are earning, then that's not going to be really helpful, right? I'm talking about the rate of return on that money, right? So the best way to know whether you have the right level of investment or not is to be able to know if the rate of return that I am getting on the money is that higher than the rate of my own income growth that I'm having or not, right? I think that's one way to be able to really look at a calibration to be able to do that. But I think it is important to be able to look at it and say, okay, where can I invest this money to be able to make that secondary sources of income? Could that be a rental income? Could that be a business income that you have invested in to be able to do that? Could that be some of the being an angel investor to be able to invest in a certain set of companies? Or maybe trading, maybe investing in the stock markets, whatever it is. And I think everybody has a different interests and different expertise, or take the help of the people who are experts, but figure out those income channels. That's going to be important to be able to do that. The third, I think somewhere along the way, if you are going to wait for everything to materialize and then take that leap of faith, unfortunately, that's not going to, I mean, that's going to take your lifetime to be able to really do that. Every time I made decisions, did I have everything planned out? I mean, the answer is no. I mean, I would love to say I have planned out, but it's very difficult because once you jump in, there are many, many things that would kind of really come in and you have to adapt to those situations. That's why we say leap of faith. If you everything is set, you don't need a leap of faith. You have you know what that is all about, right? So you are
Yeah.
executing it. So the fact that you are taking a leap of faith on yourself is because there are still uncertainties, still all the questions that are not answered. That's why you are taking a faith that things would work out. And they do, right? It may not be that the company that you founded is going to be successful. That may not be successful, but the exposure and the learning that you have will open up the doors probably for better career opportunities that you did not have before, right? And it did for me. The amount of exposure that I had when I did Minzik with artificial intelligence for the digital space has opened up a lot many opportunities for me personally and professionally, which would not have happened if I didn't do it, and most of that knowledge was more academic in nature. If I had to kind of read.
Yeah. So in a way, it actually made you more marketable as an employee if you want to, because now you build additional skill sets that people will pay you for example, right?
Absolutely. See, one thing people need to understand is you take the deep techs, right? You take artificial intelligence, or you take about the blockchain, you talk about the crypto space. How many people do really understand these spaces in the world? Right? If you look at the percentage of the traditional workforce and percentage, so let's talk in the financial services between the traditional finance and DeFi. How many people truly understand DeFi? Right? So you know that if the world is moving in that direction, that's where career opportunities exist. With whatever limited workforce that companies are going to be having, they want people with those skill sets. How are you going to get those skill sets? I used to be an avid book reader kid. I used to read tremendous amount of books, and I still am. I love reading books. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying book reading is bad. But what I have realized along the way is anything, if I want to learn a new skill or a new technology or a new knowledge space, by the time somebody writes a book on it and it gets published and is in the market, that's
Too late.
outdated. That's outdated. In fact, I will tell you today the traditional news channels are outdated. Most of my learning, most of my information comes from Twitter. and uncensored, right? You get to know what's happening real on the Twitter. Then what's the latest FTX implosion that happened, and the way the mainstream media covered it is pathetic, right? Whitewashing it, whereas you knew what was happening, and if you're following it on Twitter, you knew what's really happening out there. So I think your sources of learning is going to be changing, right? So I think you have to adapt in embracing some of these new learning models. And if you are operating and being an entrepreneur or starting startups and getting exposure in some of these technologies, it is going to open up a humongous career opportunities for you, which you will not get if you stick to the traditional path that you have seen for the last any number of years. The future is going to be distinctly different than the past.
That's right. But let's actually dissect a little bit on your view on global markets being ugly going forward. Like, what are some of the things that you see that's giving you that view?
See, I think at the end of the day, right, I will give you a couple of stories and examples so that people do really understand that. But the headline is, all the countries over the many years have printed tremendous amount of money, right? So we have seen a significant bull market for the last 15 years, and a lot of that bull market has kind of really come in because of the free money that was introduced into the world, right? I think more than $35 trillion of money that got printed has been pushed, which has risen the stocks, the asset bubbles, and everything, right? Their prices have gone significantly up. It is no more tenable at that point of time to be able to continue to run that path, right? So you would want to see economies grow up, but that economic growth should be coming in by increased productivity levels, right? Through innovation or many of the other aspects, not through the free money printing that's kind of really happened. So if you look today, the debt to GDP ratios of the countries have blown up significantly. The inflation has gone significantly up. Therefore, you have rising interest rates to be able to tame that inflation, and you are raising those interest rates in an area where your debt is significantly high. So to service your debt, you require a lot much more money to be able to come in. And this is all going to be leading to a lot of unemployment. So let me give you one example of unemployment, because people still look at it and say, oh, we have strong employment numbers, right? Why are you talking about unemployment and why are you painting this blue pictures? Let me give you a phenomena and an example with that, what's going to be happening. So there is something called as a bullwhip effect, right? When you see a bullwhip effect, it's like the bullwhip, right? You hit the whip, there is an initial move that translates into a bigger move subsequently before it subsides, right?
Yeah.
Now, what happened in 2020 in US? Let's take that US as an example. We all know of the stimulus checks that everybody has gotten, right?
Right.
Which has increased the spending level of people. And what that has done, suddenly everybody says, oh, we are in a great growth market. There is a tremendous consumer demand. And almost every company has increased their inventory levels, has increased the total employee strength that they have to be able to meet this growth in demand, with an expectation that this demand will continue to exist in the years ahead to be able to really do that. Now, people are realizing that that was more of a temporary phenomena, and whatever is that stimulus checks, that's dried up, and the demand has come crashing down, right? It's not gone back to the 2019 levels. It's actually going to plummet much further, because let's talk about inflation for a second. With the stated numbers, I'm not even talking about the unstated numbers, right? The stated numbers of 8.1% that you're talking about, around 8% of inflation that's going to be existing in the country. In order to kind of really deal with that inflation, you have to kind of really either manage the supply chain side or manage the demand side. Now, it is very difficult to be able to manage the supply side with whatever the oil and so on. Right now, the commodities are cooling off after a significant bump up in the prices, but systemically that there is shortage of supply. So that inflation from the supply side will start coming back up once again. So what you need to do is manage the demand side. That means what? You are going to be crushing the demand. The Fed and other central banks will be increasing the rates, will be utilizing the tools to be able to crush. And if you heard the Fed chair, I think about a month back, people asked him, and people were scared that, are you going to be increasing the rates to break the economy and to destroy the economy? And he says, if that happens, I have potentially tools to manage that, but I don't have the tools to be able to manage. So I'm okay to err on the side
That's
of
right.
doing rather than doing less, right? In that manner. Now, if the demand is going to be plummeting, which is now and which is going to happen much more, any of these businesses, where can they deal with that, demand? So they don't have a choice but to let go of people. So Amazon, I will take the example of Amazon, right? In 2019, before COVID, Amazon's global headcount strength was at around 800,000 approximately, right?
Yeah.
In 2022, the
1.6 mil or something, right?
1.6 million. So they doubled their headcount.
Yeah.
Now, right now they announced they're letting go of 10,000 people, but to be fair, if they have to kind of really do it, is they have to go back to the 2019 numbers at best, right? And maybe
Yeah.
even lower than that, given the whole. So look at the unemployment that you are going to be finding in this world over the next few years. It is going to be humongous. And the prices continue to kind of really stay high. So people's levels of savings are going to be coming down to be able to really do that. So that's, those are dynamics. I mean, I can go and talk about different economic aspects. I don't want to make this more like an economic class, right? But
That's right. That's right.
about, when we are saying that, hey, this is going to be a different time and it's going to crush the equities markets, crush the bond markets, right? It's not like earlier, oh, equities come down, bonds go up, or bonds come down, equities go up. I think the whole fundamental investment models and structures need to undergo a change and will undergo a change. The question is, if you are aware of it and if you're prepared, you are much safer. You are going to be seeing a tremendous amount of counterparty risks in the system. How do you protect yourself from counterparty risks? You are, in crypto right now, you are seeing run on the exchanges post the FTX implosion. In the traditional world, you're going to see a run on the banks. How do you protect your money, right? What diversification you use? What models do you use? I think these are all the questions that comes in front of the people, that it's important for the people to be able to take those calls.
Yeah. But I do think, in pursuit of freedom, right, having financial freedom makes a big difference, right? So knowing all these moving parts, it's critical.
Right. So let me talk about freedom a little bit, right? And when we talk about freedom, what does freedom literally mean? I mean, it's very easy to use the word freedom. So I do want to define, five, dimensions, 4 or 5 dimensions of what freedom is, so that people kind of really get. And one of it is financial freedom. Obviously, you don't want to be constrained in being able to make money. So it's important that you are able to really do it. And I'm probably right now past 6 months, and probably at the end of this month, I would be in 7 months in this freedom journey, right? And I will give you a little bit of examples of that. So when I'm talking about financial freedom, I can tell you that today I'm able to make as much, if not more money, as I would have made if I would have continued a corporate job. So for people to think, hey, if you go down this path, you cannot make money, I do not think is a correct conclusion. It just opens up a humongous number of opportunities for you to be able to make money, to be able to get there. And I'm 100% sure that if I pursue this path, that I end up making probably more money than I would have made if I continued a corporate journey, right? And we'll talk a little bit. The second is the freedom of time. I think it is important to be able to know our time is fairly boxed in, to be able to really say, this is what you do on a Monday to Friday, this is what you do on a weekend, to be able to really do it. These activities are specifically for a certain period of time. I think it just opens up the world for you to be able to do, you define the time the way you want it. The other day I posted on my, I think on my WhatsApp status, that I was having a very leisurely lunch on a Monday afternoon. Right?
Yeah.
Not technically possible, if you were part of a corporate life, to be able to do that. So it gives me freedom. So today I can go on a holiday on weekdays, right? Which gives me better price points for the hotels.
It's
Which gives
cheaper.
me
Yeah.
cheaper, which gives me great upgrades. So I actually get more value out of it. And there is no weekend crowd. So I get better service and better quality than what I would have got on a weekend, right? So it just opens up the world to redefine what is a weekday and a weekend, and to be able to embrace it in a, you define your own boxes in the way you would want to be able to do it. you know. So I think that's important. The location is the other one, right? It gives me the freedom to be anywhere in the world, and I can continue to do what I'm doing. I'm not necessarily constrained on a specific location, right? What I do need not stop whether I'm in India or I'm in Switzerland or I'm in US or some other place at any point in time. So I can manage through that. So it gives you the freedom not to get specifically parked in a specific location, right? It gives the freedom to be able to do that. The next is association, freedom of association, who you interact with, who you engage with. Many a times when you're in a corporate responsibility or a job, you are interacting with the people in that space. While that is good and no disrespects to anybody, you kind of really doing it, there are many other people who are doing exciting things in different fields. Your ability to learn and interact just kind of doesn't exist because you're so consumed with what you are doing in your job. Suddenly, your freedom of association and the people that you interact with and engage with dramatically changes and opens up the world. And the freedom of speech, say what you feel, without any encumbrances, right? To be able to really do it and voice out an opinion without having to think what would the regulators feel and say, or what would the companies feel and say to what you're saying, right? It just opens up. And all of this finally leads to what I call as the freedom of purpose. At the end of the day, many of us have aspirations to be able to do something with our lives, to be able to create an impact, to leave a legacy, to leave a footprint in some way or the other. I think, we all of those take secondary or tertiary in our day-to-day responsibilities. What this freedom allows you to be able to do is bring to the front, make you think a lot more about it, and take you in newer directions that was hitherto not possible. A side benefit of all of this, and I will tell you, it's very important for me too, is the freedom that I get spend time with family and especially with my children, right? The amount of time I'm able to devote with them, and I feel that now I'm able to probably contribute to their growth, not just from their studies or whatever is it, but more as better human beings, right? To inculcate that value system, which would not have been possible in our day-to-day lives, right? Busy lives, that's kind of really possible. So, this is the freedom. And for me, this is what we need to aspire and to live. And it's not going to automatically happen unless until we are willing to put a thought to make that happen. Either you take a leap of faith on yourself to make it happen, or at least start planning and putting in a thought to move you in the direction, because it is important to be free. If not, I find it very constrained right now if I have to think about it in any other way.
Yeah. Now, how important is that understanding the word enough? Because the reason why I said that is, I've talked to a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people that are extremely successful, right? They make a crap ton of money, but they end up building up a lifestyle that matches that crap ton of money they make. They end up not having a lot left. Like, so how much of that is understanding the word enough?
I don't think there is ever going to be enough for anybody, frankly speaking. I mean, there is not going. I mean, if somebody wants enough, they will never get it. As you rightly said, with the increase in the money you get, your lifestyle changes and it creates more wants, not needs. Your needs still the same, but wants kind of really go exponentially high, and not just your wants of your family members, right?
Yeah.
All of them goes exponentially high. So I don't think there is going to be enough at any point in time, but I don't think the pursuit of freedom takes you away from the path of making more money. I want people to understand that the pursuit of freedom is not mutually exclusive with money, making more money. You can make more money, and I think I have seen many doors open up and many opportunities to be able to make money now than what I had in the past to be able to really do that. So now I think it's not the challenge that people have is I don't know all those doors. I don't know all those opportunities. So at least, one is take a leap of faith. If not, my recommendation is start planning to be able to say, hey, if I wasn't getting the paycheck at the end of the month, how much money can I really make, right? So start creating the channels and see if, set a target for yourself and say, can I make 20% of the money every month, or at least in next 6 months? right? It may not be every month. You may get a lump sums of money at different points in time, but does that get to 20% of my money or 30% or 50%? Set your targets and move in the direction. And maybe when it gets to 50%, maybe you get a lot more confidence to be able to jump in, and then it opens up opportunities. At least start moving in the direction. But I think you need to plan and move in the direction. That's critical.
That's right. And it's interesting you mentioned about Monday to Sunday as well, right? Like that's for me, it's the same thing. Like I don't plan my days based on a Sunday or Monday. I look at what I call activities. Right? Is this a growth activity? Is this an activity that generates memories in my family? Is it an activity where it generates income? And I disperse activities throughout the week. It doesn't have to be a Sunday or Monday or Saturday, right? It shouldn't matter. And and just having that freedom, it's amazing.
Humongously. I mean, it's liberating to be able to really say that. Now, it's not easy when you start it off because it makes you uncomfortable because we are rooted to certain think in a specific way, to operate in a specific way. But over a period of time, as you get more exposure, all of this will now start becoming very, very exciting, what you could potentially do, right? And it presents tremendous opportunities both for learning and from career perspective that you would want to change, and opportunities to be able to engage with different set of people. That's important. That's where, when I talk about new doors get opened up for you, how are those new doors getting opened up, right? That's because of your interactions with newer set of people. That's because of your new learnings that you are getting, which is constrained by what you are doing today in your life, right? So somewhere along the way, if you can't make that whole transition to a complete freedom, at least carve out a certain day or a certain portion of time in a day or whatever is it to your own self to kind of really say, what does it mean from me from a freedom perspective, and can I be free in this time zone or in this time space, and can I do some of those things, right? Get exposed to looking at different ways of making money, getting learning, exposing, engaging with different sets of people than whom you regularly meet in your day-to-day lives. I mean, just open up the world for you in a slightly different way. And then I think once you start getting a taste of it, it would further motivate you to be able to move in the direction.
Yeah. And so if you were to start out again, like let's say you just graduated college and now knowing what you know, like how would you do it differently? Like what would your advice be? Like do you get a job at a big tech company? Do you go into like services? Do you like what would you do knowing what you know now?
Oh, a lot differently, Kate, than what I probably done. I would take more risks in the early on stages of my career. I probably will start companies. I would, how much ever, like many of the people who know me during my career and in my life know that I'm a contrarian and I'm a person who embrace change a lot, both personally and professionally. But I can tell you that despite looking at that, when I look at it in hindsight, I could have done many things much more faster. I could have made certain changes and embraced certain things a lot more quicker than what I have done in my life, right? So I would say take early on, take more risks, try out something new, don't be afraid of failures. And those actually open up a humongous opportunities, which I feel like if I'm starting my career, I probably would be an entrepreneur early on than what I had become, right? I may actually start with two, three companies. I may join startups. I may do 10 things very differently than what I'm doing, because the amount of learning that you get through that and the exposure that you get through that is, and ability to make money is also fairly high. Then I can also tell you something else, right? Let me be honest. Very few people in the corporate life get to be the CXO levels who makes tons of money, right? 98% of the people are probably at the different stages of the career in the corporate world. And I can tell you, if you want a good amount of money to, especially as you're planning your lifestyle and your life differently, you won't make enough money by doing a corporate job. You have to think different. You have to be an entrepreneur. You have to do, think outside of the box, what you would want to do. But just banking on that paycheck gives you, the month end paycheck gives you the security, but the month end paycheck is not going to give you the wealth.
That's right. And so what are three or five skill set that you think people should bet on then? Because for what it sounds like, it's really about skill set, right?
I think more than skill set kit, I would say the attitude and the aptitude, right, which is critical to be able to do. One is, I think it is important to stay focused on learning. Now, I'm not saying learning means picking up books and reading, because for some people, they may not, be comfortable reading a book, right? And gone are the days of colleges when I gave up reading on books. That's possible, right? But
Yeah,
learning
yeah.
does not mean just reading from books, talking to people, watching videos, following on Twitter. Do something else, but continue the journey of learning, because the world is changing at a lot more rapid pace today than what we knew any time in the past. And this rate of change is so vast, and for many people it is difficult to comprehend this enormity of change. So people are becomes focused on the next thing that they are doing rather than embracing that. But you don't need to worry about so many things. It's about constantly learning what's changing. I think that's very important to be able to do. Second, I think it is important to take more risks, right, in life. Risk taking has to become earlier. What used to is people say play the conservative. I mean, in the asset management space, you always say 60-40, right? Stocks and
Yeah,
fixed
yeah.
income, best portfolio allocation that will get you. That's not going to be true in today's world and today's time. I mean, with a life expectancy of 87, if somebody is 60 years old and you tell them, hey, 90% or 100% of your money should be in fixed income, the person is going to outlive their money. The money is not going to be sufficient to be able to support them for the next 27 years. So the old models of investments and all of that have changed, and they are changed to an ability to take more risk. And that's true in your life to be able to take more risk, to be able to do. Third, network with more people, right? I think today people are more happy to share information. People are more open to be able to talk. Many of the times we constrain ourselves to be able to do that. I think it is important to reach out to people, to learn from their experiences, buy them a cup of coffee. I always tell them, you buy anybody a cup of coffee, that coffee's price, you get tremendous amount of knowledge and wealth in that 1 hour or half an hour. Then many times our risk reward ratio of the coffee price is like crazy, to
That's
be
right.
able to. So by some people, go out, buy somebody a cup of coffee, drink and talk, and you get, and who knows what doors may open up for you. And fourth, and I leave this with the last, is have an open mind. Don't get rooted into the way things have happened in the past. Have an open mind and be open to be able to get new thoughts in and embrace new changes. I think that's very, very critical for people to be successful.
No, that's fantastic, Bharat. Thank you so much for being on today. Really appreciate it. I'm getting a lot of insightful things for people from this chat. So thank you so much. Now, usually in the end, we ask the guests if there's anything the network can help them with. So what are your asks of the people on the network?
See, look, my point is I'm happy to support people in general to be able to kind of really do that. So anybody can reach out to me, and I'm happy to share any of the information or the connects or invest, whatever is it that's possible for me to be able to kind of really do it, right? I'm open. I have gotten many startups that come to me just for feedback, and I give very candid feedback in terms of what I feel about things that they should be looking at. Because one of the things I have seen, especially with many entrepreneurs, is there is a lot more focus on the product than on the business. So people go out and set to build the product, but they don't think too much about the business. And the startup cannot be successful unless until they can monetize the product, right, and bring in revenue to be able to really do it. So they don't think so much about the business side, and I help people to be, ask them certain questions to be able to really get them to be able to think, and I can do that, right? And once again, that's the advantage of having that freedom of time. I can
That's
spend the
right.
time the way I want it, right? So I'm not necessarily constrained by certain appointments and so on. And I'm more than happy to be able to support people with anything that I can potentially do. And in a way, I see it as paying it forward. I have been very lucky in my life that I received support from a humongous number of people that I worked with, whether they are my team members, my peers, my leaders. People were always willing to help, and I therefore want to continue to help anybody to be able to pay it forward so that they can continue to help other people that are coming along in their way. Because believe me, the world, and I keep repeating it, but truth is the world is changing at a rapid pace. And when that happens, it presents a humongous number of opportunities for people, right? The question is, are you willing to embrace those set of opportunities to be able to really get there? So that's where I am. And where does my own life lead forward? I really don't know. Gave myself 1 year to pursue this path of freedom and see if this is really working or this is a Kool-Aid I have been drinking and it's it's different. 7 months into this journey, 6.5, 7 months into this journey, I do believe that this is a credible journey that I'm pursuing, right? And tomorrow I may turn an entrepreneur once again because I love doing something, right? Or I may do some other, consulting assignments, or I continue to do what I'm doing, which is learning a lot about macro. One of the things I'm focusing on as a person is there a way I can help people deal with the economic and financial changes that are going to happen in the world over this next decade? Dramatic changes, and these changes can either present a humongous opportunity for wealth creation or could translate into wealth destruction, right? If you continue to stick to the same old set of models as in the past. My journey, and one of the purpose, when I keep talking about the freedom of purpose, and one of the purpose I set for myself is how can I help a good number of people deal with the changes that are going to happen in the world in this decade and enable them to protect and grow their wealth as against destroy their wealth, right? And that's what is the purpose that I have set for myself. And I'm doing that by talking to some of the people, and maybe as the time pursues, I may create much more structured and formal channels to enable that to reach to a wider set of audience. But that's something I'm seriously thinking as a purpose that I have set for myself to really help people with.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bharat, for being on. Your insights help a tremendous amount of people already that I can see from the audience tuning in today. And for the audience, again, thank you for your continued support. And I kept going because of you. I keep getting a lot of great positive feedback, and so we'll continue this channel as long as you commit and find value in what we do. Next week, I'll be on with Steve Miller. Steve is a legend in the space of the credit markets, and he's a serial entrepreneur. So Steve and I next week will talk about his, of course, entrepreneurship journey, but also the secret of how to build, identify, and invest in successful startups. Stay tuned. See you next week. Thank you, Bharat. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank